Well, good afternoon to everybody. Blessings on your life. It's another day the Lord has created, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. I am happy to announce that I made it. I'm still here. I'm alive. And on Sunday, I was challenged on Sunday with the MRI machine, and I got through it. I got through it in Jesus' name. I got through it. Yes, 2 Timothy 1:7 says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And I have been plagued and challenged with a soundness of mind for over 20 years, maybe even 30 years now. I don't quite know. But the MRI machine has never been my friend. And I have been known to tear them up. I mean, to where they are not repairable. I mean, rip them up, break the plastic in the inside of them, and all kind of stuff. I'm one of those guys that if you can't take me somewhere like an amusement park to get on a roller coaster or something like that, I can recall getting on a roller coaster, and right before it was to take off, I panicked so bad that the person, the attendant that was, doing putting people on and off and checking for safety and stuff like that, he had to come get me because I freaked out. And I freaked out because they would put those bars over you, and the bars was too much for me. Although I was out in all this air, and just the fact that the lockdown of these bars, psychologically, mentally, the soundness of my mind escaped me, and I was challenged by that. I couldn't handle it. And so one of the things, and easy for me to say, right? One of the ways to get beyond your fear is to face it. I'll never forget many years ago, eons. No, I'm kidding, but a long, long time ago, I was a new journeyman pipe fitter, and in Mansfield, Ohio, I worked at this place called the Steel Mill at the time. I don't know what it's called now. I was trying to wait because they making a lot of noise outside, and they back to making this noise. That's the reason why I'm late. But so I was a new pipe fitter, and I was a journeyman, but I didn't have any experience. And I was working on this place, this department called the pickle line. And in the pickle line, what they would do, they would get coils of steel, and they would run them through the pickle line, which would drip this acid on it. And the acid was so powerful that we would have, like safety meetings or whatnot, presentations, that if the acid would get on you, it would continue to burn. So it would burn through the clothes, get in your skin, it would continue to burn. You had to neutralize it. And so it placed fear in my heart even before I had my certification, right, as a journeyman. So I had fear. And I'll never forget, one day uh, I had an issue, and I'm trying to see who there's noise being made here. One day I didn't have an issue, but the pickle line had an issue, and one of the pipes, the service pipes for the acid, burst. And so I was the pipe fitter that was on call that particular day, and they would, have so many whistles. And for the pipe fitter, I think it was four whistles. I can't remember exactly, but it was either three or four whistles. And so you would go over there, and somebody over there would tell you what the problem is. And so when I went over there, they said the line busted. And when I looked up, it was acid that was flying, spraying out everywhere. And so I was afraid, and I wasn't getting ready to subject myself to that type of situation. And so I'll never forget, I ran back to the maintenance office, and I told the foreman the general foreman at the time. His name was Jim Gear. And as I talked to him, I said, "Hey, this stuff is spewing out everywhere." And, he said, "Well, you're the pipe fitter, right?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But it's acid." And I'll never forget this, and I'll be done with this part. He left, got up out of his seat, left the office, did not put on any protective gear or anything because he knew the detriment of the problem, and he ran to the problem. And he said these words to me, and I'll never forget it. He never even asked me to come behind him or anything. This was after he addressed the problem, and then he came back into the office and he saw me there. I didn't even go back over there because it was acid, right? It's really a sad story for a person that's supposed to be a journeyman and mechanical and all that stuff. And this is not the way this is supposed to go. So he came back into the office and he sat me down. He says, "You never run from the problem." He says, "You run to the problem." And that stuck with me for years. I said, "You don't run from the," I said, "but it's acid." And the issue was he did not have fear of the acid. He had respect for the acid. And that's what he told me. He says, "I respect the acid." He says, "But he says, I don't fear it." And so he says, "I've been doing this for so long that I know how to get around certain areas. That doesn't mean that it won't be detrimental to me, but if I don't use caution, but if I use caution, then I can attack that problem, even though it's a great problem." So I'm saying all that to say this is that when I got to the MRI area and went into the machine, what I was doing, instead of running from it, because I'm telling you, that's just something that I don't want to deal with, I went towards it and I said, "I'm going to face my fears." And so with that, and using Second Timothy 1:7, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. I was able to go in that machine for 40 minutes. And there were some challenges from, time to time, but I overcame those challenges with soundness of mind. And in Jesus' name, I did it. So I just thought as a praise report, that I made it. I have to go in there from time to time and have a brain scan and a spine scan because of a pre-existing condition, right? Okay. So anyway, today I want to talk a little bit to you and see if we can make some sense out of where we are in the world today, and if we can be helped a little bit. And so I want to bring your attention to Genesis chapter 1, and beginning at verse number 27. And it says this: "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female." I want you to underscore that: male and female. Those two words, they're male and female. Created he them. Male and female created he them. Now, as we scurry on over to Genesis chapter number 2, beginning at verse 23, it says this: "And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh." This is Adam said this now. Remember, in Genesis 1:27, this is God. In Genesis 2:23, this is Adam. "And Adam said, This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. She was taken out of me. So she shall be called woman, because she is me. The only difference is she is me with a womb. She is able to replicate me, to reproduce me over and over again." Hence, the command of God was to be fruitful and to multiply, and that is to multiply, to replicate God in the earth over and over again. I want to challenge you today, talk to you today the best that I can from the subject, age of the female expression, age of the female expression and dominance, age of the female expression and dominance. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm getting ready to get into a uh, be a male chauvinist or uh, get into a challenge between a man and a woman, a gender thing. I'm not getting ready to get in that and to be sexist at all. That's not where this is going. But I do want to talk about the spirit of the age, because right now, and hopefully I'm going to try to unfold this the best that I can. What we are dealing with and what we are being challenged by today is a feminine spirit. And when I say that, it's not relegated to women. It is a spirit, and it is the purpose of the spirit, the agenda of the spirit. And that spirit now has embraced and encaged man and woman, male and female. It is a spirit that has a certain function. Okay, so with that being said, I want to let me just raise the issue here. Let me raise the issue. The issue is we have that what we are dealing with is two two functions, the male and the female, or we could say the Democrats and the Republicans, right? They are being expressed, okay, male and female. Where is all this noise coming from? What is that? Okay, pardon me. So male and female, they are being expressed in two people. This is where I'm having a challenge or a problem with today. And I want us to be helped, because God is not a God of hatred. God is a God of love. Now, there's always going to be a right answer and there's a wrong answer. Everybody can't be right, and everybody can't be wrong. So we have to find now the authority and the guidelines of which direction we need to go in. So when we look at these two people, they are very significant. You have a man on one hand, which is represented by the Republicans, and you have a female on the other hand, which is represented by the Democrats. The issue that I'm having, you have Kamala Harris, Democrat, and you have Donald Trump, Republican. The problem, and I really want you to consider this, I want you to think about it, and I want you to let it bask in your heart, as a good noble person that you are. The way that we are dealing with this, and I'm going somewhere today. The way that we are dealing with this choice, these issues that are before us, it's reduced down to a common denominator of two words, and that is love and hate. So I'm challenged today because although I do not agree with former President Donald J. Trump, I do not hate him. And what I'm noticing by regular people, citizens, and by the church is that their response to the party, which is represented by a man, is filled with hate. Conversely, those that are for him, their response and their reaction is filled with love. When you look at Kamala, although I don't agree with everything, uh, basically would hardly know things about her. Now this is just my assessment, okay? But my assessment is not based upon my feelings or my emotion. My assessment is based upon what I've didacted, or my redaction of what has been presented, and then the process of elimination, inductive and deductive reasoning on both sides. The thing though that I had to wrap my arms around and my head around was, how was I feeling about the party, number one, but moreover about the person, because the person is there to do a certain job or to represent the party in a certain way. And so there has been the response: either you love her or you hate her. Those that are Democratic people, they love her, whether or not what she's talking about or what she represents is good for the country, is right or wrong. They still love her, and those that don't, they express a level of hate. And so the challenge today is, why are we walking around with hatred? I've got a lot of people that are close to me, and yet when we have these discussions, they express themselves. Their emotions get so caught up in hate. It's reduced down to hate for an individual. Oh, I hate that man, or oh, I hate that woman. And so that now has become problematic, and we call ourselves Christians. But in being a Christian, even though we disagree, we are still to love, because God is a God of love. And so we love the individual, but we may dislike or hate what they stand for or what they represent. Uh, either way, we have posture that we must uphold or represent, because the world is looking at us as the trendsetters and to be the example. And as I've said before, as the church goes, so does the nation. Now, that little preliminary out of the way, let's kind of deal with the reason why I bring about these scriptures. So when we look at this thing about females, and we say, look at our title, and our title is an age or age of the female expression and dominance, age of the female expression and dominance. So we need to unpack a little bit of what we call etymology. And etymology is simply to wordsmith, that is, to do a deep dive study of grammatics, of words, to understand where do they come from, right? And what is the meaning, what is meant by it. So we have a lot of Old English, we have Latin, we have Arabic. We have uh, different areas that we extract meaning from, that brings about a certain relevance in our life. So when we look at the prefix here of fee, because we want to look at this female thing, because we're going to get into what it ultimately it's doing. And I at the onset of this, it's really about an emotion. Now watch this. The prefix fee is associated with feelings and or emotions. Now the prefix fee, it is a word now that is before a noun. In this case, male, female, male is a noun. Okay, person, place, or thing. So if you put fee before it, then you have to say to yourself, what does the fee part mean? It has some meaning. It is very significant here. So it deals with, or it is associated with a person's feelings and or a person's emotions. The expression of fee is presented in four ways. Stay with me. You may have to hear this over and over a few times, but you'll get it. The expression of fee is presented in four ways, and it may be presented in more, but I'm going to give you the four common and basic and most accepted in ways that we run with, that we understand it. The first way is a fee is to speak one's feelings, or to speak my feelings. Fee, okay. Then now we're dealing with the emotions, right? In terms of grammatics and the etymology of fee, I can't dive too deep into it for the sake of time, but understand this. I've done my research already, and I do know that fee is attached to feelings and emotions. Okay, that's where it's coming from. Okay, so now there are four ways. Number one is to speak my feelings or my emotions. That's what we do to with that. We speak it. That is the feelings, or that is the emotions. We speak it. Number two, we feel my feelings, or our feelings and emotions. We feel how it affects us. We feel the feelings of our emotions. We feel it. Now these are all things that we need to understand, because this is where most of us we are at, even as it relates to a lot of these issues. And I'm going to try to get to that today. There's a lot of issues that either we speak on or we feel a certain way about. Now, this is the fee part, right? This is the prefix. Number three is we think a certain way. I think my feelings. I think my fee. I think my fee. I think my emotions. It's how I think about a certain things. The thinking could be based upon the way you were cultured. It could be based upon where you live at. It could be based upon the influence, the pressure that's around you. There's a myriad of reasons why the fee would cause you to think a certain way. Keep in mind, fee is associated with feelings and or emotions. And number four is how I act. I act out my fee. I act out my feelings, or I act out my emotions. I act out my feelings, or I act out my emotions. Now, again, I said that we are dealing with the spirit now that is prevalent upon us, right? And I gave you two scriptures. I gave you two scriptures, Genesis 1 and 27, and then I gave you 2 and 23. And so when we look at that, 1 and 27 says, let us make man in our image. And so God created male and female, male and female. And so in the male itself, there is no difference until you put the fee before it. So there's two ways to look at the male component and or purpose and or the expression. On one hand, you have male and what is its function or its purpose, and then you have the fee that goes in front of the male, which Adam he confirms that the male is male and female. There's a part of it there, but the fee now becomes the expression of the male, or becomes the feeling of the male. Stay with me. So now we have to look at two prefixes. One is woe. One is woe when we look at Genesis 2 and 23. And then the other one is fee when we look at Genesis 1 and 27. So when we say woe, woe goes before the man. So now when you put it together, you get woe, man, woman, woman. Woman. It is now Adam in Genesis 2 and 23, he says that I will call her woman, because God now puts Adam into a deep sleep, and he does not go and form the woman out of dust, but he forms the man out of dust. And so he, when he puts him to sleep, what he does is he extracts out of the man the rib of the man. And so now the man sees something that is very near and dear to him, close to his heart, starts to walk towards him. And he says that I am going to now understand in Genesis 2 and 23, this is no longer God talking or God's doing. God has already done what he's going to do in Genesis 1 and 27. Now Adam is giving purpose now to this other part of himself, the other part of himself. And so now he says, she shall be called woman because she is me, but she has a different function, or she has a different purpose, right? So now we have to look at Genesis 1 and 27, because 1 and 27 says, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. When we look at what the image and the likeness was, what God was saying in essence was, he says, I want to replicate myself. I want to mirror myself over and over again in the earth, in our likeness and in our image. And the way that we're going to do this, he says, he gives the man a command, or he says, I want you to multiply and replenish the earth. When he says, I want you to multiply and to replenish the earth, what he was saying was, I want you to have purpose. I want purpose to be multiplied over and over and over again of the same thing. So what was that thing that he wanted to be replicated over and over again, or to be fruitful over and over again? And that was the image and the likeness of God. And so now in Genesis 2 and 23, he says that the only way that we're going to be able to do this is we have to put a W-O, or a woe. He says that this is me, but she now, or it, or he, his functionality is with another purpose that I can't do. I can't serve myself in this way. So I have to take a part of me out, and that part, I will bring it back to me, but that part now has a womb, a womb. W-O-M-B, that part has a womb. So now that makes it, that gives it a earthly purpose, like the heavenly purpose. The heavenly purpose was to duplicate God in his image and likeness. But the only way that you can do that on the earth is that you have to have an earthly being that is able to replicate over and over again. And the only way they can replicate over and over again is that they have one entity, one part of that 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 union has to be able to reproduce. So now you have Adam, which is the male part, and then you have Eve now is the female part. And we can break down Adam and Eve at another time. Anyway, I'm just trying to help you, because I'm trying to get us to see a point. So now when we look at this whole thing, you have the female part of Adam, and he gives her, he assigns her purpose. Adam assigns her purpose, which is a part of his purpose, because she came out of him. God, I wish I could preach this. She came out of him, and she came out of him to reproduce who he was. And who he was the image and the likeness of God. God created them male and female, but when he created them, Eve did not show up yet. The only way Eve showed up is when God put Adam to sleep, and then he brought Eve out of Adam. And he says, wow, she shall be called woman, woman, whoa. She shall be called woman because she is me, but she has a womb. Now, so that is the prefix of O. Let me further delineate here female, because Genesis 1 and 27 says male and female created he them. So now you have to look at fee, and fee is the emotional and affectionate or disgruntled connection to earthly things and God. I'm going to say that again. Fee, which deals with the emotions, is the emotional and affectionate. And understand, woe dealt with the purpose. Adam gave woe purpose. Woe was the woman or the function of the womb. A woman has a womb. So her purpose on the earth is to reproduce Adam. I'm still headed somewhere. Then there is an expression. There is, how am I supposed to feel about it? What comes? How do I emanate? This is where praise and adoration and temperament and all these different emotions, how we swing like the pendulum from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. This is where fee comes in at, because fee is associated with feelings and emotions. So now we have female, the emotional and affectionate or disgruntled. See, the emotions can be affectionate or it can be disgruntled connection to earthly things and to God. Earthly things and to God. So a lot of things that are happening right now in the earth, it is related to a disgruntlement towards how God set things in place. I don't want to do it that way because that goes against my earthly emotion or my earthly understanding or my earthly desire. So now there's a different affection, or there's a different emotion, there is a different feeling, the fee now that is going to come from that. So you have two things that is going on. One is purpose, and the other one is, how do I feel in purpose? There's an earthly feeling or connection, and there is a godly feeling and or connection. Are you still with me? Are you still with me? Now, the other piece of this is, some of you that are wordsmiths, you may say, well, why, when you look at fee can be expressed fi or fe. If you look at it in fi is a very, it is a static expression, fi. So you could say female, fimale, if that's a word. I don't know if it is or not, but if it was a word, then it would change the dynamics now of what I'm talking about, because that would mean that it does not have or render the expression phi, because phi by definition is static. When you see something that is static, that means that it does not move. It's almost as if it is inert. But if you see fe, fe as a prefix, fe has the connotation of dynamic. And dynamic means that it is a moving target. It is always changing and shifting or morphing. Okay, it is alive. It's doing something, and that is befitting for who we are. We are always moving. We are always dynamic. We are always changing. We are emotional beings, and so one day we feel this way, or 1 minute we feel this way, the next minute we feel a different way. And so this is where we at. And I'm setting you up here just for a quick, just something real quick, and I'll come back and say more about it, because I'm trying to still build up to where we are on the campaign trail. This is basically where this is kind of going to. Now, I want to bring your attention. I'm not going to read it for the sake of brevity, but in Luke 22, 10 through 13. Now, you know what? Let's go. I don't like doing that. So let's just read it. Luke 22, Luke 22, 10 through 13. Let's just read it. This is Jesus talking to his disciples. Luke 22, 10 through 13, right? It says here, and he said unto them, behold, when you're entered into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. There shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Some translations say jug of water. And then it says, follow him into the house where he entereth. I'm just going to read verse number 10. Let me read it again. And he said unto them, behold, when ye are entered into the city, now he's talking to the disciples here. These are males. Male disciples are male in this case. There shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth. Now, if you are not a student of, I'm doing something right now, leave me a message. If you are not a student of the Bible, then you would read that as if it is a story, but you can't scurry past that, because in that particular verse, it is something that is culturally significant, very significant. And so I named this, my title was Age of the Female Expression or Dominance, because there is a spirit. Now watch this here. As we look at Luke 22 and 10, he says, as you enter into the city, you will find a man with a pitcher or a jug of water. It's going to come together here in a few seconds. So now we see a man that is carrying a pitcher or a jug of water that is on his head or on his shoulder. What's the problem with that? The problem is that culturally and customarily, it was never the function of a man to fetch water or to go and get water to carry it. It was always a customarily, it was a function of the woman. So as you look at the Jewish custom, whenever there was water, I'm not saying this is how we do it today, but I'm trying to get you to lock in on a certain disposition, a certain time, a certain way of life with a certain type of people that were present in that time space, that culture, and how they function. That's very meaningful from a spiritual standpoint. And so when you look at that, and Jesus tells his disciples, he says, this is what you're going to find there. That was very loaded, because what else he was saying was, this is a problem, but there was a lot that he was saying that he did not say. So whenever you will see this, and we don't see the disciples rebut it to say, okay, well, no, you're not going to find a man with pitchers of water, because that's not how we do it, Jesus. But Jesus was leaving that up to us to flesh it out, right? To go deeper and to get the spiritual implication of or application of what that meant for us today. In other words, what he was saying was, there is a dysfunction. There is something that is going to be taking place when you see this, or when you enter into the city, that you should not see. And so, in other words, what he was saying was, because the spirit now is so prevalent, that you are going to see men taking on the function of a woman. What is that also saying? When you look at the prefix of fee, so the female now is supposed to do this, but fee is attached to feelings and or emotions. So what he's saying in essence is that what the prevailing spirit in the earth now will not only overtake a female, but it would also overtake a male, and the males and the female will succumb to the spirit that is in the earth, and they will all run on emotions and feelings, their association. So my association with abortion, my association with border control, all these different things, it's going to be attached to my feelings and my emotions about it. Out of those feelings and emotions, I may it may derive a place of hatred or of love, but it may not have facts attached to it. It may not have godly principles attached to it, godly ways attached to it, a godly understanding or godly authority attached to it. Why? Because it's based upon my feelings and or my emotions. Now, remember what I said. It is a female is the emotional and affectionate or disgruntled connection to earthly things and God. And so, where we are today, and what I'm trying to show you, even in the scripture, as we look at Luke 22 and 10, is that Jesus was telling his disciples that it's going to be a shift. And the shift is there's a pronounced and a predominant spirit that is going to take over the earth, or a dispensation or a period of time that is going to prevail in emotions and feelings, and people are going to run off of emotions and or feelings, and this is not of God. I've got to close. I could also add to that it is the age, and I've talked about this a long time ago. It is the age of Aquarius, or from the zodiac sign, or the star. And this is not that we follow the zodiac, because Jesus was the fulfillment of stars giving us signs. When we read in Genesis about stars in the heavens and all that, they were for signs of the time and all that. But when Jesus came, Jesus fulfilled the signs of the times. And so you're supposed to put all that stuff away, and you're supposed to hear him, and basically hear him only, because now all that, the times and the stars and the seasons, all of that pointed to Jesus. So when Jesus comes, he is the fulfillment of all of that. So, but even as we look at a watered down place where a lot of people go to, which is the zodiac, or what else they call it, the zodiac, and uh, doggone, I forget the other name that they call it. But we ascribe to it, right? We are not to ascribe to it. But even as we look at it, and we look at the Aquarius, the symbol of the Aquarius is a man kneeling with a pitcher of water on his head, right? And it aligns with Luke 22 and 10. You will find a man with a jug or a pitcher of water carrying it. And that is something that you are never supposed to find. That is something that is going against the culture, that is going against the grain. Now, I don't have time to really flesh all this stuff out, because I'm trying to go somewhere, and I'm beyond my time already. Now, let me close by saying this. The issues that we are dealing with, which are predominantly emotional issues, because a lot of us, we don't even know the backdrop of these issues, and we have not done a deep dive into these areas where these issues are, to see what it's really all about. But to name a few issues is abortion. And you have I could go into 2 Kings 6 and 24 through 30, which I'll deal with that on next week, I believe. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this, because this deals with the culture, and it also deals with the personal satisfaction of where we are spiritually. Another issue is border control. Then we have the issue of inflation and or taxation. We have the issue of jobs, and how do we feel about that? Housing being available and or affordable. We have the rights and voices of children, and of women. Right now, children now are screaming, they have a voice. I want to change myself. I feel like I'm a boy. I feel like I'm a girl. Children, you have the issue of the LGBTQ and so on and so forth. I could go on and on and on. All these now are issues that are very pronounced in the earth today, and they are attached to these emotions and or affections, these feelings that I have about certain things. And these things must be checked in because they are things now that have a spiritual connection. There's a spiritual overtone. There is the demo and a democracy, and it's hid. It's not spoken of because the demo now is the demon. Is There's a demonic side to democracy. It is very hidden. It is very subtle. You don't see it, but we're all asking for democracy. Democracy is give us what we want. But in essence, what you want could be very demonic, okay? It's demonized, but you don't realize it because you don't understand spiritual things and you don't understand words. And so what you're saying is giving me a part of what the devil is wanting, what he's trying to implement in the earth. And it all comes out in an expression of, emotions and affection and all these different things on all these different issues. And then we relegate it to certain people, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. And then I get a certain emotion. So I hate Kamala because of, she's against this or she's for this. I hate Trump because he's against this or he's for that. Instead of looking at the issues, because what we're dealing with is structures. It's issues and structures is the prevailing problem. And so we have relegated it to people. And so we want to point a finger at Trump. We want to point a finger at Harris. And Harris and Trump are not the issues, they're pawns. And they are being put out front of the issue to push an agenda that is not even theirs. They don't even understand it. It is agendas that is demonic, that is coming from the enemy for the end time in order to try to make an attempt to get his will, the enemy's will, done in the earth. On one hand, on the other hand, it is so prophecy can be fulfilled. There's a lot to go through with that. Listen, I hope you've gotten something out of this message today. If nothing else, I want you to understand that there is a fee that we are dealing with. That is an emotional persuasion, and that is in the male of the man and the woman. They are the same. But when we put the fee in it, that is the expression now of the male and the woman. The other difference is the WO, which deals with the purpose. And so that is to replicate yourself over and over again in a godly fashion, what God predestined us to be in Genesis 1:27. To replicate ourselves in his image and in his likeness, to be fruitful and to multiply. I hope you've gotten something out of this message today. I am Dr. Donnie Eatman. I am the face of Face to Face. I want you to share this message, to like this message, to give it a thumbs up, share with an enemy, with a friend, with a neighbor, share it with somebody. I want you to know that I love you, but God loves you so much more. I want you to go in God, go in his power and his strength, and in his strength. And most of all, I want you to go in God's grace. Until we meet the next time, shalom, be blessed, and I'll see you the next time. God bless.